Daniel's hands trembled as he pressed the sterile gauze against Melissa's shoulder. The gash was deep, exposing layers of tissue that didn't bleed the way flesh should. Instead of crimson, a faint luminescent blue seeped through, viscous and cold to the touch. "Hold still," he muttered, trying to keep his voice steady. They were in the maintenance bay of the orbital station Kepler 7, surrounded by the hum of recycling systems and the distant groan of metal expanding in the solar wind. Melissa watched him with those unsettling eyes, irises that shifted between copper and silver depending on the light. She hadn't flinched when the debris had torn through her EVA suit during the solar panel repair. Hadn't screamed. Just calmly sealed her helmet and made her way back through the airlock as if a piece of shrapnel hadn't carved through her shoulder. "You're shaking," she observed, her voice carrying that peculiar harmonic quality he'd always attributed to comm system interference. "You're bleeding blue," Daniel shot back, wrapping the bandage tighter than necessary. "Forgive me if that's a little unsettling." The station's medical officer was 3 days away on a supply run to the lunar gateway. The rest of the 6-person crew was either asleep in their pods or monitoring the quantum telescope array on the far side of the station. It was just the two of them in the harsh white light of the maintenance bay. Melissa tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Do you realize, human, that I'm not an ordinary person?" The words hung in the recycled air between them. Daniel's hands stilled on the bandage. "Human, not Daniel or you, human." "I had my suspicions," he said quietly, securing the last strip of medical tape. "The way you never eat in the cafeteria, how you volunteer for every spacewalk, even the 12-hour ones in full radiation zones. Your personnel file lists your age as 28, but there's a photograph in the archives from the first Mars landing 30 years ago. There's a woman in the background who looks exactly like you." Melissa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You've been investigating me." "I've been curious." Daniel stepped back, crossing his arms. Outside the reinforced windows, Jupiter hung like a malevolent eye, its storm systems churning in endless fury. "What are you, Melissa? Some kind of android, a genetic experiment?" She stood, and the movement was too fluid, too perfect. The wound in her shoulder had already stopped leaking that strange, luminescent fluid. Through the gap in the bandage, Daniel could see the tissue beginning to knit itself back together, not with the slow cellular regeneration of human healing, but with the deliberate precision of nanomachines restructuring damaged material. "Neither," Melissa said. She walked to the window, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of space. "My people don't have a name that translates well into human languages. The closest approximation would be transients. We exist in the spaces between matter and energy, between thought and action, between what you call dimensions." Daniel felt his pulse quicken. First contact protocols scrolled through his mind, procedures written by bureaucrats who'd never actually expected to use them. "How long have you been here, on this station?" 4 years by your reckoning. On Earth, in various forms, for approximately 3,000 of your years. The number hit him like a physical blow. 3,000. "We've been observing," Melissa continued, her voice taking on a distant quality. "Studying. Your species showed such promise in the beginning, tool use, abstract thinking, art, but you're destroying yourselves faster than we anticipated. The climate collapse, the resource wars, the artificial intelligence crisis of 2051. She turned to face him. "We thought perhaps if we walked among you we could understand, maybe even guide you away from the precipice." Daniel's mind raced through every interaction he'd had with Melissa over the past 16 months. The way she'd calmly talked them through the oxygen recycler failure. Her uncanny ability to predict solar flare activity hours before the sensors registered anything. The time she'd stopped him from entering Sector 730 seconds before a coolant line ruptured. "You've been protecting us," he said slowly. "Protecting, observing, learning." Melissa's expression was unreadable. "Your people are remarkable, Daniel, capable of such beauty and such horror, often in the same breath. We've seen species far older, far more advanced, but none quite like humans. You burn so brightly, even as you consume yourselves. Why tell me this? Daniel asked. Why now? Melissa gestured to her bandaged shoulder. Because you saw, and because, she paused, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked uncertain. Because I've grown fond of you, of this crew. That wasn't supposed to happen. We're meant to remain detached, objective. But spending years in this form, sharing meals even when I don't need to eat, listening to Johnson's terrible jokes, watching you solve impossible engineering problems with nothing but determination and coffee. She trailed off, and Daniel saw something in her eyes that looked almost human, almost vulnerable. I'm being recalled, she said finally. My people believe I've compromised the observation protocols. After tonight, there will be a different Melissa, one with no memories of this conversation. The transfer will be seamless. You'll never know the difference. What if I report this? Daniel asked, though even as he said it, he knew how absurd he'd sound. An alien living among them, wearing human skin like a coat. You can try, Melissa said gently, but who would believe you? And what evidence do you have? By morning, my cellular structure will be completely human. The blue fluid will have been metabolized into nothing. I'll be just another crew member with a bandaged shoulder and a boring story about a maintenance accident. The station creaked around them, metal and polymer groaning under the stress of vacuum and radiation. Jupiter's storms raged silently beyond the glass. How many of you are there? Daniel asked. Here on Earth in the system. Enough, Melissa said, watching, hopping, waiting to see which path your species chooses. She walked toward the exit, then paused at the threshold. For what it's worth, Daniel, I hope you make it. I truly do. You're infuriating and brilliant and doomed and magnificent all at once. The universe would be dimmer without humanity in it. Then she was gone, leaving Daniel alone with the hum of machinery and the weight of impossible knowledge. He looked down at his hands, still stained with that faint blue luminescence, already fatting to nothing under the harsh lights. Outside, Jupiter turned, indifferent to the small dramas of creatures who reach for the stars while still learning to save themselves.